So I took part in the self-regulation project and then identified a child who had trouble accessing the curriculum, and it was in P4 at the time. So I wanted to, he was quite articulate orally. He was able to talk a lot about his interests in detail, although he had trouble with speech sounds, but then didn't seem to be able to kind of transfer his knowledge across to his learning and things. Some days he seemed quite able to read CVC words, and then other days it was almost as if he'd forgotten. So I wanted to come up with some sort of self-regulation plan to help him apply what he obviously did know, but struggled to transfer into his reading. So his confidence and self-esteem seemed really low. He'd exhausted almost all literacy support within the school. So working alongside his parents and the educational psychology team, we put together a plan with the goal of being able to apply his knowledge of phonics to be able to read. So we used repeated scripts to scaffold his thinking. We used language such as easy or hard, and we used the goal, plan, do, review cycle to put a plan in place. It was reviewed and altered a number of times before the review of the plan reflected that he was having some sort of success. So that meant that the child's focus was on the plan needing reviewed as opposed to him not being able to do something. It was actually that the plan needed adjusted, rather than him feeling that he wasn't able to. The plan became look, point, sound and say, and it was a mantra that we repeated every single time we went to go and do his reading. It was as simple as being reminded that he needed to look at the word, to point to it so that his eyesight wasn't then getting lost within the other words on the page, sound it out, and then he would be able to blend those sounds together to say them. We created a visual which represented the ready to read plan, which had the 4 steps on it, and he then drew pictures which related to each of those steps. So although maybe there was a word that was trickier for him to read, he was able to see the picture that related to it and go back and say, oh, that was what that step was. The impact of that on his well-being was almost immeasurable. For one of the first times he was actually achieving success in something that he had thought was just too hard for him to do, and he'd kind of given up on it. He became excited to read. He was practicing at home. The plan was going home, so it was being reinforced at home. And even when his reading then developed and it got a little bit more difficult, it was just that he knew he had to adjust the plan, and it wasn't that it was too hard and he had to give up. So for larger words, the plan then became look, point, cover, sound and say. So we added an extra step in, and he remembered then he had to cover part of the word to chunk it, and he did a part of the word at a time. And then that became how he then tackled the easy or hard. Well, this word's hard, so I need to adjust my plan. I maybe need to go for the harder one. The self-regulation plan, although it only applied to his reading, ultimately reframed his thinking and grew his confidence so that he still tries even when things get a little bit harder. If his attitude is that when he finds something difficult, that actually it's the scaffolding around it and his plan that needs to change, then although it might still take him longer and it might still be hard, the hope is that he'll still persevere and he'll get there because he knows that it's the plan that needs to be adjusted, not him.